I think if I'm doing these daily videos, I think it's important that I at least try to stay current with what's coming. I know that it's fun to talk about drama, and probably drama gets more views, and probably these patch rundowns don't get as many views, but at the end of the day, I don't want my channel to only be about drama. After all, gaming is why I exist, and I think it's important that we stay up on all the changes. So let's go ahead and do it then. So these are the proposed changes for League of Legends patch 10.14. I figure that we need to keep addressing these patch notes and changes just to keep people current, give people something to watch during work, give people a little bit of time to understand the changes. So yeah, without further ado, the 10.14 patch notes. So the first thing that you're going to notice is Ghost is getting buffed again. So sometimes I feel like what happens at Riot, like in the balance department over there, is that they have an agenda and they start pushing that agenda really freaking hard. And lately I get the feeling that like there's like however many, like 70-80% of the people in the balance team are just like, ugh, we need Ghost to be the best summoner spell. We need to change the summoner spell hierarchy. Like that's how I feel like these buffs have been going with the focus on Ghost. It's almost as if they really want Flash to be secondary, not the first, the premier summoner spell. It's almost like they really want to see Flash not be in every single list. I find that very interesting that they're going this far with it though, because they've been buffing Ghost over and over and over again, and they did it with Nimbus too. Nimbus technically buffs all the other summoner spells to the point of where if you're taking, like, I used to do a Ghost Smite Tryndamere Jungle, also an Ignite Smite Tryndamere Jungle. I do all sorts of funny stuff with Tryndamere Jungle because of the Nimbus changes. I also saw some strange stuff in mid lane where people were messing around with Smite in mid lane almost as like as a move speed, try to escape ganks option as well as push option. None of it really stuck though, is basically what I'm trying to say. Even though there are nuanced cases of people making stuff work, it's not meta. It's not meta. Ghost is not meta still yet. In pros, you're not going to see people running Ghost over Flash. You're just not. Because Flash is simply too valuable in many cases. So knowing that, you can kind of see where Riot's coming from when they keep buffing it, because it's almost like they really want to force it. And I think they're getting into the territory where pretty soon Ghost is actually going to be almost a meta thing. But I think it's going to take a lot of... I don't even know necessarily if this buff is going to push it. So while a lot of people are looking at the buff and saying, oh, they're buffing Ghost again, I mean, I'm thinking the same thing. But just speculating, I think that they have an agenda here, and I think they want to push Flash out of being like the main thing, or at least shift the percentage of people just taking Ghost over Flash to just shake the game up a bit. Predator buff. So Predator was already buffed, but the results weren't really what they were looking for, so they're buffing it again. I've heard a lot of junglers complaining that Predator's not that great, and that's more of an opinion. Because I haven't really messed with Predator too much since the change. None of my champions really run it. But generally, win rates on Predator champions has actually gone down, not up. And I don't believe that was the intent. So they're going to change Predator again and make it on a little lower cooldown with a little bit more damage when you actually engage somebody off of it. Volibear. Volibear is getting nerfed. He will still be uber strong, in my opinion. He'll still be very valuable. This change won't really do anything. Attack speed's down a little bit. Healing to monsters is down a bit more. I do not know how that impacts his clear, but he was coming out of jungle pretty healthy so far, so I can't imagine this would be game over for Volibear, at least not yet. He's pretty much the number one, or one of the top three at the very least, meta junglers right now. Realistically, this isn't going to knock him out of commission at all. I'm a little uncomfortable with the concept of Volibear being a top pick. I think it falls under the similar problems that Garen had. Any champion that's point and click, point and win, inevitably is either broken or terrible. It's pretty well. I think the ideal balance solution is exactly where Garen is at right now. No offense to Wrist, I love Wrist. Garen should not be a viable high elo pick, and the only time that Garen should be a viable high elo pick is when someone spams a fuckload of games and plays consistently, which Wrist normally does, to be fair to him. But Garen should not be dominant. There's a big difference there. You shouldn't be able to spam Garen and get like an insane win rate with a champion that is, you know, pretty easy to execute, let's face it. There's not a lot of complexity there. And I feel the same way with Volibear. I feel like the last patch was a monumental failure of overbuffing in typical Riot fashion, where they say, we made new champ, you buy new champ, you play new champ, you win more game. I don't really like that approach to balance. And quite frankly, anytime a champion like Volibear is overtuned, I just kind of cringe, because I do believe that there's a fine line. There's overtuned kits for sure, which are that's just bad design. There's complex kits which have counterplay and back and forth, which I like. And then there's like easy mode kits where I just don't feel like they should ever really be that strong. If played to perfection, they should be consistent and reliable, yes, but they shouldn't be capable of like just crushing every match that they're in. And that's a good thing that they're nerfing Volibear. Varus, Q damage is down, Q minimum damage is down, E base damage is... looks like that's actually going... So Varus getting a big nerf. Basically, Varus has been kind of a cheese lane for a little while now. Wins every lane, bullies pretty hard, pretty safely, and gets bot lane rolling pretty reliably. So a nerf to Varus makes sense. Should happen. He's too strong for what he does right now. Pyke mid, see buffs, which we will. It says it's a nerf overall to Pyke, but we'll see how that works. Wukong knockup duration's a lot shorter. Wukong's not going anywhere based on this nerf. In my opinion, the problem with Wukong lies in the double ultimate issue. I still don't understand why he can ult twice. I think it's really silly, and I think because of that, he's going to be viable for a long time until he gets nerfed more and more. People are still figuring out how to get Wukong's value out of these some of the lanes that beat him, and I think a lot of Wukongs are quite bad at the champion because he's still relatively new, and I just don't see him getting like he's already been played in competitive a little bit. He's played in high elo quite a bit. I just don't think the knockup duration nerf is anything that significant, really. It's the fact that the knockup duration doesn't change the outcome of the fights, which normally Wukong, because of the fact he can go invisible and he can knock up twice, if he has his ult up, you can't really kill him under towers like reliably. Hell, he can even out-duel people that he shouldn't be able to duel in many situations because of the double ult. So I don't think this really does much to Wukong. I don't expect a significant drop in win rate, play rate, whatever. Trundle, attack speed is a little bit lower. Trundle's still pretty good in the hands of somebody who knows how to abuse his reliable jungling and his anti-tank matchups. He doesn't even necessarily need to play into tanks to be good. And he's been seen in pro still quite a bit. So the nerfs do make sense. The E cooldown, or I'm sorry, Ezreal, the nerfs. Ezreal is without a doubt probably... yeah, he's probably as strong as he's ever been in bot lane right now. The E cooldown going up, that is a significant nerf. Will it ruin Ezreal anytime soon? Probably not, but it is significant. His E cooldown, a big reason that Ezreal is as good as he is and as reliable as he is because of the E being up as often as it is. The way that good players get value out of Ezreal is basically dancing on that line and having the E as like a retreat policy. Like, I'm going to fuck with you, and if you go in on me, I jump away. A longer cooldown means that anytime you get Ezreal's E on cooldown, there's an even longer window where he can't really step up without dying. There you go. I think it's a significant nerf, but it does not push Ezreal out of bot lane at all. A good Ezreal will still get plenty of value out of the pick, and he scales really, really well for what he does. So, buffs. It says Pyke support is getting a buff, which is also simultaneously a nerf to Pyke mid. So we're going to see how that works. MR per level is down. Armor per level is down. Q mana cost is down, it looks like. Q cooldown. Reading these patch notes is like solving equations. Q cooldown looks like it's down. Q damage looks like it's up slightly. Movement speed 40 to 60 is just 40 flat. E damage is up. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The chat can, maybe the YouTube comments can. But the way that I'm interpreting this is Pyke is going to have less MR and less armor. And I suppose that is how they're effectively nerfing Pyke mid. And they're forcing him into more of a support role where he can't interact quite as much with solo lanes. But as a compensation buff, they're also making him some of his abilities a bit more spammable. And I think that's how if I'm reading this right, I believe that's what they're going for, which kind of makes sense. If Pyke is forced to face solo laners and fight for farm, then these numbers actually do make a little bit of difference. Not crazy. I still can see Pyke mid showing up from time to time. But I think it's going to be more reserved for people that are specialists in it more than anything. This will hurt a lot of the close fights and close scenarios where Pyke wants to shove and wants to trade, and fights are a little bit more. The result of the fight is a little bit tighter. So I think I see what they're going for here. I don't know if that the nerfs to the actual armor aren't that much, in my opinion. You're not really losing that much, so I can't see Pyke mid being totally useless still. But I guess they're just trying to lower that win rate a bit more. Karthus Mid gets a buff. But I guess, yeah, it's an overall buff to his Pyke support. So support Pyke players rejoice, because Riot seems pretty convinced this is going to help out support quite a bit. And I can see it. Lower cooldowns on abilities, more damage on some abilities. Just don't take too much free damage. Karthus Mid. So, I mean, Karthus can still be played in the jungle a little bit. But let's see here. Health is up. Yeah, health is up. Movement speed is going back up. Q damage is going up ever so slightly. Q damage to monsters is going down to 80%. E mana restore only when spell is toggled off. Always. Switch to always. E tick rate 1 second, 4 per second. E DPS unchanged. Huh. Now the Q damage to monsters being reduced to 80%. Definitely hurts Karthus's speed of clearing, but he's also getting a move speed buff as compensation, and his Q damage is going up. I don't know what the end goal here is with Karthus. I believe we would have to do some sort of clear to see, because I actually played Karthus last season in high elo in the jungle, just because it was being abused so much. I'd have to play him to see, but I don't think this actually kicks him out of jungle. If anything, this is like a buff. This like keeps his jungle viable, in my opinion. Very strange what they're trying to do with Karthus. It's almost like they don't know. It's like they don't want to come right out and just kick his damage to monsters down to nothing. They just undid the nerf to the move speed, which I think is very bizarre, and they upped his health. I don't know about this one. This one seems like it helps Karthus in both roles to me overall, just looking at it, not just mid. But I don't know. We'd have to test it. Kha'Zix base health is up. Isolation multiplier is up. Kha'Zix isn't even in a bad spot. So I don't know, man. These are the types of buffs that make me scratch my head. Like, what does Riot see? Because if I'm not mistaken, there's a Kha'Zix main that was running Conqueror. I mean, I guess you could argue that Conqueror got nerfed for champions like Kha'Zix, so maybe this is like a compensation buff. But Kha'Zix is by no means a weak champion. There was like a Kha'Zix guy that made rank 1 EU West not even a month ago. So I don't really understand this buff, but maybe it's just because only I don't know. Maybe it's like a lower population or lower elo population pool buff or something, but Kha'Zix is fine. So this buff, I mean, people that already specialize in Kha'Zix are probably pretty happy with that, because they're just like, cool, the rich get richer, I suppose. E damage on Sejuani is going up. E cooldown is down to 8. Ally buff range is up. This is a straight up buff to Sejuani. Fun. Big Piggy. The Big Piggy is back. Very, 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 very interesting. It definitely puts Sejuani back in my brain as a possible pick. We'd have to test that and see. W missile speed. What the fuck is this Zed buff? This one I am not so sure about. W missile speed is now 2500. W cooldown is down. Wow. This is a big question mark for me. If I'm not mistaken, there was already these changes before in the opposite direction. So I don't know about the Zed buff. They're probably going to wind up having to nerf this again because this is quite significant. It makes it very hard to avoid Zed's damage in lanes, and it gives him more opportunities to get ahead in lanes, and it also makes him harder to gank and harder to find opportunities against. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it from a higher elo perspective, but that's significant. Zed's gonna be getting rolling a lot more often. It's fucking tough to farm against him. So with this missile speed improvement, it makes it even harder. So like that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like when I've played against good Zeds, it's already pretty tough for me to last hit and not get fucking knocked out of lane because I stepped too close for a half a second. Now I feel like the good ones are just gonna guarantee damage if I even step up at all, almost like point and click. That's crazy. That's very crazy. Alistar, Q cooldown, buff. Helicopter Rejoice. That's pretty good. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Then we got Riven. P damage? What the hell is P damage? The Riven urination damage is up. 30 to 60. 80. Scales with champ level. Passive damage. Got it. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't put that together. It looks like the overall damage is up quite a bit. 25 to 30, 60 at max. Scales with level. I think a buff's fine. Riven really hasn't been that great. And even high elo, I haven't even seen her show up that often. I think it's fine. She has a fuckload of terrible matchups. You really have to earn it. You really have to earn a lead with Riven, and she's just a tough champion, man. Like honestly, the best players, honestly the best laning players that I have matched up against in ranked are like, I just feel like they're playing the game better than most players are Riven players. Because not only are they talented mechanically, I'm talking the best. So before a bunch of fucking gold Riven of Seed, NEACE 6, no. If you're playing Riven in fucking gold elo, you're garbage. You really are at the game. So don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm saying that when I face off against people that are like really, really, really good at Riven, who are like up there in the bracket, I feel like they are playing the game not only at a really high level macro-wise, but mechanically as well. Just because I just acknowledge how patient and smart that they have to play this champion to pull her off. So I think overall, from my read, she's been pretty weak for the past year or so, which I'm okay with because realistically, I hated how long she was strong for. But I do think she probably deserves some love because she really hasn't been showing up very often. There's just too many champions that she can't really run over. And it's got to be frustrating to be a Riven monster and not actually be able to get ahead often enough to justify the pick. So yeah. Overall, I think it's a reasonable patch. I don't see anything that's too crazy. The Zed buff is a big question mark to me. The Kha'Zix, a slight question mark, but I think it's okay. I don't think it's like game-breaking buff or anything to Kha'Zix personally. And I think it's more of a compensation thing with the Conqueror being changed. But stuff that needed to be dialed in is dialed in a little bit more. Karthus, I'm confused about the direction he'll go. And then Wukong, I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon with that nerf. He's still kind of bullshit. And Riot really wants Ghost to be a thing. Alright. If we all, on this channel, on the stream, if we all just chill and don't take Ghost, we can get it buffed like one more time. Okay? And then we can start using it like from time to time. We can get one more Ghost buff in there. I think it'll probably be picked over Flash. But cool. Alright then.